Mexipino family, what's good? My name is Nico Blitz, and before we start the podcast, I just want to share with y'all our sponsor for the podcast, Tap Tap Send. Tap Tap Send is a remittance app where you could basically send money over to your family and friends over in the Philippines. So, let's say the global trade is like 55 pesos to $1 and vice versa, right? Everywhere else is basically going to send you like a knockoff version, like 30 pesos, 40 pesos, 50 pesos. Tap Tap Send will literally send whatever the world globe trade is and make sure that your family gets it. So Tap Tap Send is very easy to download. All you got to do is go to the App Store on your iPhone or your Android. And then afterwards, just make sure that you send some money over with the code Mexipino. And with that, you will get $10 that you could send to your friends and family. So make sure you download Tap Tap Send app today and get yours. Kamusta na kayo?
Hola, hola, everyone.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
There we go. Cool. See, so we always like to test our guests to see if they watch like the beginning of the episode or if they just know what to do naturally when we greet.
Sí, ¿cómo están?
Bien. Nico doesn't really know that much Spanish, so he's probably like, what did he say?
I'm sure you picked up that. ¿Cómo están? That's easy. That's pretty,
I picked it up. That was very easy. That's like
easy.
Spanish 101. Even though I didn't take Spanish 101 in high school or anything. We have Mike from Millennial Loteria. What's up, man?
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys reached out. I always love talking about Millennial Loteria, about the process and representation for Latinos. And I thought you do a podcast that deals with two different cultures, and I think Millennial Loteria is really all about that too, about mixing cultures and mixing things and creating something new from that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, like I first discovered Millennial Loteria, I want to say it was off an article. And I was just like, that is so funny because it's just like you're putting a twist on the original game.
Yeah.
And for those like who don't know, it's like there's so many different cards like that are now new that it's like oh my god, like La Selena, there's a Selena card, right?
There's a La Selfie, La Sirena. La Sirena, the mermaid became La Selfie just because it looks like she's kind of taking a selfie.
Okay,
so I thought it was a good way to like update it. And for those people that don't know what Loteria is, I mean, I'm sure there's people who, a lot of Latinos do, but there's even some Latinos that don't know what Loteria is, which was like very surprising to me. It's a lot of people just call it like Mexican bingo. Latino bingo is usually like the way they call it. It's very simple to play. It's just the same way as bingo. Instead of you get a board, and all your board has different characters on it. And you call cards, and if the card matches your board, you put a little, I grew up playing frijoles, but this is the Millennial Loteria version, so like we put on Bitcoins on so you mark it as
That's so funny.
So
that's lit.
Yeah. So, and then if you get 4 in a row, you win, or you do full board, so there's different rules
there's like
play.
Diagonal, like horizontal, vertical.
So what you're saying is you got a whole bunch of Bitcoin that you won from all of this, huh?
Yes.
Hey, look, man, I got some ETH that I could trade you right now.
There's different kind of Bitcoins in here. Yeah. We have to call them Bitcoin tokens so people don't go like, wait, are there Bitcoins in here? Like, it's not really Bitcoin in here. There's like, 80 like little tokens to put in there.
That's all I'm saying. I'd say you'd have everyone who's into crypto like, let's run this up. We're buying it.
That's so smart though, because like Nico said, you have like, the crypto heads that are going to be like, oh, okay, like let's try it. It's a fun little game, and that's now they're into Loteria, but a different version.
Yeah, and I think it was all about showing, the older Loteria cards, if you've ever seen them, they represented not a generation, not even our grandparents. We're talking about like great grandparents. Like this is an old game. And the characters on there were like El Borracho, which are kind of funny, but they're also stereotypes a little bit about Latino culture in a way that wasn't done like, El Borracho's the drunk.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That is sort of the drunk, and it represented, Latinos in a sort of stereotypical old school way with things that don't represent Latinos today, nowadays. And so I felt like, a lot of millennials, we put down our Loteria games that we used to play when we were kids, and we picked up our cell phones, we picked up our video games, and I felt that this tradition was sort of falling, a little behind on the times compared to like all the different games out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be fun to do this was all a meme. This wasn't like I tried to make a game. I just tried to make like memes that represented our generation, that represented me. And I just started updating the cards, and like, La Dama, this is the lady, just this picture of this lady, very old school representation of women, was one of the only female cards in the deck, and they just represented women as like the lady. And I was like, I know women are more than just like the housewife sort of lady now. So I turned her into La Feminist, and now she's like, instead of walking on the street with like her little purse, she's like marching down the street with like, con su pancarta, you know. And I think it represented more of what's going on now today. El Catrín, this little like dandy gentleman, became a hipster, you know, and that represented more of me. And so I try to update the cards so that they still keep that old school feel of like, you
playing
know,
of the actual card,
the actual game, and just give it enough of a twist where it's kind of funny that you're like, oh, the mermaid is not holding a cell phone, you know. Catrín, he's basically dressed the same because he kind of dressed like a hipster already. You know. And it's just little things that we updated to make it still feel traditional. Like the old school heads, you know, are gonna still understand the cards. But the new people are gonna see a little twist and a little different, and that's why it's really connected with people.
It's funny too because, like you said, like the old heads are still gonna get it, and like they even say too, like when we're taking, oh, mira, la está taking un selfie. You know, it's like that's how they talk too.
Yeah, and they get, you know, old people usually get a little angry too. Like I've gotten like responses to Millennial Loteria from boomers that are like, oh, millennials ruining Loteria again. And I'm just like, chill out, okay?
Oh my God,
you
ruining
can
how?
You can still buy the old one because it's one of those things where like, if, you know, they're like, oh, you're ruining my childhood. You can still buy the old one at the swap meet, you know? But if you go to Target, you can buy this new one and just play with your kids and you'll have fun. And you can still play both. I know a lot of people that play the old one, you know, and then they play the new one afterwards and kind of laugh at like how it's evolved. Right. And I think that's really funny.
But also too, in order to get like the kids and the newer generation involved, like you need to be able to like update these things. Otherwise they can't relate. Like they can't relate to like things that happened like way back when. Like, you know, obviously none of us were around like when the original cards were built and whatnot and all those images. But like if you have like a mermaid taking a selfie, a kid's probably looking at this like, oh yeah, I could get into this because I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the Loteria, it dates back to like the 17th century. You know, a lot of people think it started in Mexico, but it didn't. It started in Italy. So it's actually an Italian game, La Loteria, you know. And so it started, and they had a lot of the similar images still then, like the mermaid, el mundo, the world. So a lot of inspiration came from tarot cards for their deck. And from Italy, it went to Spain. In Spain, it got translated into Spanish, and it became a really popular parlor game to play amongst like the elite.
Right.
And then from Spain, it came to New Spain, which at the time was like Guatemala, Mexico, California, you know, when like the conquistadors came over and they brought this game, and it was a game that was sort of used to teach people Spanish, you know? So it has this like different, almost like colonial like vibe to it when it came. And when it came to, you know, in Mexico, people started liking the game, that they started making their own little versions and that incorporated more Latino culture into it, that incorporated more things of the time. And so you know, I studied a lot of Loteria history before making this game, and I've seen that like through generations, like there have been different versions of Loteria, and each one is updated a little bit more and a little bit more. They're all like snapshots of the time. So like if you look at a really, really old Loteria game, you'll start to see what society was like back then. So they're really fun time capsules. And that's when I realized like, okay, there hasn't been an update in a long time that really represents us today. And so for me, Millennial Loteria is this little sort of time capsule that I hope people in the future look back and be like, oh man, remember people were in like selfies, like fidget spinners, remember those? Like,
well, I mean, like if you look that far in advance, like let's just say 100 or 200 years from now, like, you know, this stuff is going to get outdated. Like, because you know what I mean? Like, imagine people just taking photos with their eyes. Like, they're going to be like, why is this mermaid holding a cell phone? We could take photos with our eyes now.
Well, that's why, you know, we have different versions, which I always wanted to keep it updated. We have this is our Millennial Loteria regular version. And then we have our Gen Z edition, which is all about Gen Z culture. So we have like, thirst trap, they'll cancel. Activists. So it's a lot more funny. Like, I'll make sure the camera here.
That's hilarious.
The canceled one is just hilarious because it has the like Twitter bird.
Yeah, exactly.
It says RIP on it. I'm so dead. You mind if I see that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so this is lit.
There's some cards in the back too if you want to check out the, you know, some of the in the back, but it's all, you know, updating it to new.
It's simp card. That is hilarious.
Oh, that's me. I definitely need the simp card.
Exactly,
El simp.
Yeah. So these are, again, we updated for, you know, the Gen Z edition, which just came out as a Target exclusive, so you can buy it exclusively at Target for this next month or two, and then after that it's out of Target, and we have a new edition called the Y2K edition, which is for all the people that grew up in the 90s.
That is a little so cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so those are 9. Tiene como que el emo, tiene la pop star,
no,
el millennial.
That's so funny.
You know, el MP3, la supermodel, las platforms. So these are all, you know, our Y2K
so
edition.
Funny.
What?
Yeah.
Yo, this is pretty cool.
Thank you.
I mean, you know, I've probably only played this like once or twice,
Yeah,
like once during like a Halloween session with like your friends. And like I understood it already, but like seeing these images right now is legitimately getting me hyped. Like, oh yeah, like I can see myself playing this for real.
People, you know, I think for Millennial Loteria, a lot of people think like, oh, you're selling a game. You're selling a game. But I always like to think of it that from our brand perspective, we're selling representation. That's really what we're selling, because people like to see themselves reflected in the games they play, in the music they listen to, in the TV they watch.
Yeah.
And I think in the game aisle, you know, you walk the game on, there's not really a game out there for Latinos. You know, a game out for Latinos too that is open enough to invite and get people hyped up whether you're Latino or not. You know? So I think with this game, I really wanted to make something that opened the appeal of Loteria so other people from other cultures can enjoy something that we grew up loving. Like, I think I'm not about gatekeeping culture in a certain way. You know, I don't want to gatekeep Loteria, being like, oh, you're not Latino, you can't play Loteria. This. That's like messed up, you know? And I think we did updates to the card too. There's a really offensive card in one of the older original Loterias, you know, that deals with like black people. And it's just like, kind of like, it's a very, I don't even want to repeat what the card was. It's very like old school. We didn't put it in the cart in our deck, you know. We like took it out. We replaced it with just more people of color and just rank normal. Like Catherine is a person of color, you know. Like there's like more just normal things that don't reduce someone who is Afro Latino into a like into a box that's just about their skin. And we've gotten so many like positive comments from Afro Latinos that are like, dude, like I'm so glad I can finally play this game with my family, or like people in interracial marriages who's like, I'm so glad I can play this like with my other family members, because it's uncomfortable when you play a really old school version of this game where I'm like, damn, like, times have changed.
Because then when you have those cards that are like outdated, like the one that you're talking about, it's like, okay, it sparks a conversation that some people are really uncomfortable having with their families.
Exactly.
And I think we know that a lot of older Latino generations, they're very closed-minded when it comes to that. And they're going to say, well, no, there's nothing wrong with it, you know? It's like, well, there is, and that's why it needs to be updated.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, we also wanted to open up, compared to other generations, I mean, Latinos, we're a lot more open-minded now than like in previous generations, especially Latinos living in the United States.
Yeah. I
mean, there's cards in the regular Millennial Loteria. There's one that's like El Pride. That's La Bandera, which is now the LGBT. The Pride flag.
Sick.
And so it was, you know, that's in every single Millennial Loteria, just to remind people that as a culture as a whole, they're, you know, LGBTQ people are still part of Latino identity. They're still part of Latino culture. And the good thing about Millennial Loteria is that it's, you know, it's hard to represent an entire generation. Also an entire like group of Latinos,
and also one that's like constantly evolving.
Exactly. So it's hard to keep up with that. So the good thing about Loteria that I found out is that it has so many cards. You know, we like have 52 cards, and we can always do expansion packs for more cards. So even if you get the game and you don't relate to every single card, I know that there's like, you know, 10 cards that you can put on your board. They're like, that's me. That's who I am, you know, where you may not be into crypto, you know, but you might be into nail art.
Nail art.
Nail art, exactly. And so you can find different things that
represent you.
That represent you, exactly. And I think that's why people have taken to the game, because they can see themselves reflected in that in a way that they couldn't before.
Yeah. That's awesome. What was the first card that you created? Or, well, it was a meme first, right?
Well, it was definitely La Dama. So I was back home in Guatemala, and this was in 2017, and if you remember that time, it was a very like the Me Too movement was just like you know, really hyping up, getting started. You had like all the women's marches happening. Donald Trump had just taken office. You know, so it was I was hearing a lot of negative things about immigrants, and I'm an immigrant. I came from Guatemala. I didn't grow up in the United States. I came here when I was 18 years old, and I have been you know, I'd seen a lot of racism, a lot of like stereotypes against Latinos, and to hear, you know, Donald Trump at that time being like Latinos, immigrants are criminals, they're rapists, there's all these things. I was so upset. I was so mad. So I was trying to find a way to like express how I felt and change the narrative of showing Latinos as modern, Latinos as cool. You know, we're like here to uplift and help society. You know, like we're doing a lot of good stuff for America. And I remember I was in Guatemala visiting my parents, and I found my old Loteria game, and I was looking through it, and I saw the card of La Dama, and I saw on the TV screen the Women's March going on. And so I saw all these women marching with like the, you know, their picket signs and everything. And I saw La Dama and I was like, wow, this is so outdated compared to what's going on nowadays. Maybe I should update this card to be La Feminist and like update it and post it as a show of support, you know, and just like something that is uplifting. And I saw like, oh, my, you know, somebody might like it and use it, you know? And so I posted it on my social media, and like all my girlfriends were like, hell yeah, like, yeah, we want this, you know, that's awesome. And I was like, shit, you know, like, let me see if I can make another one. So I took La Sirena, you know, I was like, you know what? It kind of looks like she's taking a selfie. If I just put a cell phone in her hand, it'll be La Selfie. Right. Posted that, viral. And then I was like, how many can I do? So El Catrín became El Hipster, you know? So many, like even El Nopal became La Dick Pic. Like I made it like a little like dick pic picture of it. And people went like nuts over it, and I was like, nuts.
No pun intended.
And we ended up, you know, it went all that stuff started going viral, and people were telling me like, hey, I want to buy this game. And I was like, oh shit, like I don't.
You're like, I was just making the picture.
I just have the graphics. Yeah, I'm just doing like memes, you know. And people were like, I really want to buy it, like I really want to get it, and it was like thousands of comments. And I was like, well, it seems like there's a market for it. So at that time, I had my savings that I worked in advertising for a long time. That was like my main bread and butter job, was a creative director, and you know, I had some money saved up. I was like, let me just take my life savings. I'm going to invest it in making the first 1,000 copies, you know, and it was really expensive to make them. I'm going to make the first 1,000 copies, and this will sell in like maybe like a month, not a month. It will sell like in like 6 months, I thought, you know, and it sold out in like a week.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, whoa, like there's a huge market for this. I'm like shipping everything from my house. I'm like, you know, wrapping everything. And you know, millennials, they want everything like 2-day shipping, you know?
Yeah.
So you're like, oh shit, what did I get?
They're looking for the promo codes. How do we get free shipping?
Exactly. And I don't even know. And I was like, you know, everybody was really nice. Everybody was very happy. They understood it was like a small operation. And from then I was like, okay, this is like going to grow. There's a huge market for this. And you know, Latinos are not represented in the way that they want to be represented in the United States. And this is a product that really gets them. And it's made by a Latino for Latinos.
Yes.
And so, you know, we scaled up. We partnered with a publisher. And they started printing like, you know, 10,000 copies of the game. And then that sold out like 2 weeks before Christmas. It was all gone. We didn't have any inventory. And I'm like, we need to keep upgrading. And so we've been upgrading. We've been like changing, you know, originally first we made it here in America, in the United States, the first 1,000. Then we went overseas. And then it didn't feel right to be doing it overseas, but like we needed to increase production so fast.
Why didn't it feel right?
Because this is a Latino product. So I ended up making this in, we have a factory now in Colombia. And now, so I was like, I want this to be manufactured in Latin America. You know, I want this to support Latin American families.
Right.
And so we ended up decided to, we're like, okay, now that we have the factory and it's just like printing, you know, constantly like all our different versions. And there, all the cards are made with recycled sugarcane. Because I was like, you know what, it's important to be sustainable as well for millennials.
Wow.
So instead of like, you know how they have the sugarcane husks?
Right.
Instead of, they just burn that. You know, there's like big burn piles of sugarcane husks.
Oh no.
But instead of doing that, we take it and we, the printer turns it into paper to create our games. So if you, instead of that being burning into the ozone layer or just in trash, it becomes something that is like fun and helpful, and it's, you know, sustainable to a point. So yeah.
Awesome.
So there's a couple things. I mean, there's a lot of things that you guys have been doing.
Yeah.
Like, so let me try to like break it down and simplify it. One, so you're creating jobs for the Latino community.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one good thing. Two, I think whenever, I mean, I always have like my thing about when it comes to like marches and whatnot. Like I feel like marches only last like during that time.
Yeah.
So like when a march happens on like day one, it's only going to happen on day one, and people may or may talk about it like moving forward. But like, I always question like how effective is it really going to be for the like longevity of things, right? So when it comes to Millennial Loteria, I feel like this was your idea of like a march, aka how do we spark a change that will last for a long time? So that's what I believe. At least in my eyes, that's what I believe this is based off what you were telling me. And number 3, it just left my head. Oh my God, it just left my head. Oh, number 3, yeah. Pains. And number 3, right? Especially coming from like a Filipino background, like we were always taught to like, hey, like get the high paying jobs, whether it be like a nurse, doctor, lawyer, and whatnot. You are coming from a perspective of like, well, let's just say like, you know, Latin stereotypes, whether it be like, you know, going to like law enforcement or, you know, like whatever the other stereotypes are. It's like you're giving kids an opportunity to seek different avenues of exploration of career paths.
100%. Yeah. You know, I speak at schools sometimes. We go to schools to talk up to career fairs about kids, and I have been always shocked at when you talk to young Latinos that are, you know, like about to graduate in high school, and I'm telling them like, hey, so like, what do you want to do when you grow up? You know, what do you want to be a part of? And a lot of people are like, you know, I'm going to go into like being a mechanic. I'm going to go into stuff like my dad's business, not really understanding that there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I a lot of times I come to these schools a part of like an entertainment sort of group, Latinos in entertainment, and you're part of it, obviously, you know, behind the scenes, and sort of show them like there's all these different opportunities out there, whether it's in marketing. And because I tell them like, what do you guys like? And you know, they're like, I like music, I like hip hop, I like, you know, stuff like that. And I was like, well, why do you want to like find a job in that? And they're like, well, I'm not a rapper. And I was like, well, you know, rappers have like publicists, they have stylists, they have marketing people. There is an entire industry, but you don't have to be in front of the camera. If you love something, you can be a part of like, you know, the team, the team, you know, and there's options for that. And there's a lot of, obviously you are a Latina in the media, you know, and I think that's good for people to see. And I think this game, it does open up some people's eyes to like, okay, I don't have to be just like this stereotype of what people want me to be. There's a whole like load of options for me to be, even if I just want to be an influencer, you know?
I mean, I think even too, like the game is just like more than like what Nico said. It allows other Latinos and the younger generations to see like, okay, I can be a graphic designer. I can be a creative. I can be my own CEO, you know? I can be a founder of a thing, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
So it's really awesome to see that. I mean, and you're also a dad too, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, so
I just became a dad.
Oh, really?
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, congrats. And so, like, I mean, you're already setting an example for your kid as well, you know?
I see Millennial Loteria, and I was like, this isn't for me, like, anymore. Like, this is for my kid, because my baby, she's mixed. I'm Latino, you know, and my wife is white. And so, like, she's this little Irish Latina baby, you know? And she's going to be coming from, like, these two cultures mixed together, and I wanted her to know that her identity is valid, whether she's, like, she doesn't have to be one or the other. She can be both, and that's like 100% still okay. And you're still Latina, and you're still like, you know, you have your heritage. And I think that's why this game really is for people who feel like they're pulled between two different cultures, like Latino culture, that old school sort of Latino culture that you could grow up with, but then this new sort of mentality of what it is to be a young person today in this country. And instead of like feeling like you're between two of those cultures, you know, this mixes it to a way that is just like, this is who you are, and it's okay to be, you know, you're not 50-50. You're 100% one thing, you're 100% the other, and that's totally fine. Yeah. You know?
Damn, that was probably the best explanation I ever heard of like being mixed. That's really cool. That's really cool.
And I think that's what like we try and do, especially with like Mexipino. Like, I mean, we found that there's a whole big group of people that are actually Mexipino, and you know, they're just always they've told us and they've DM'd us that like, hey, like, thank you so much. Like, and although our cultures are very similar, I still feel like I'm not enough for one group and I'm not enough for this group.
People feel that way, yeah.
Yeah, but for you to say like you are 100% this and you are 100% this, and that's how it is. Yeah. It just because you're mixed doesn't mean you're half and half.
I think that's the mentality that people need to have. And I think once you break out from that mentality, because that's the mentality that is put on you. You feel that way because other people say that to you, they pull you, they don't feel like you're enough. But if you break out of that, I think you have so much potential to reach other people. And to me, I mean, that is the mentality of like, this game is for people who feel, a lot for Latinos too, Latinos born in the United States. They feel that they're no son de aquí ni de allá. You know? And so I want to do something for that.
They're not here, neither here nor there. Like,
here nor there. You're Latinos who feel like they're, you know, they're too Latino for America, where everybody's just trying to be like, you know, white. And it's just like, it's, you know, there's this like mentality of not belonging here, like being a minority, even though in California we're not a minority anymore, you know? And then from people and then when they go back to, let's say they go visit their home country where their parents are from, all of a sudden they're like, ay, son gringos. You know, and they don't feel like they're Latinos enough, and they don't feel like they're like American enough. I think this game is something that people have gravitated to because it doesn't make them feel that way. They feel like this gets me.
Well, I think it comes back to like education too, and how much you yourself are willing to educate yourself, right? So like, let's say, you know, let's bring it back to your kid, right, who is like half Irish and half Guatemalan, right? So it's not only up to you and also your partner to educate your child about like Guatemalan like history and also like Irish history, but also at the same time, like Millennial Loteria does that for like, you know, all of like Latino history. Like how much of if I feel like I'm not Irish enough or not like Guatemalan enough, like what can I do to make sure that I educate myself so that I feel like I'm actually involved in the culture?
I mean, I think to me, it's just anything you do becomes part of the culture is what I think, you know, like people are always like, why did you put a selfie? Like that's not really Latino. And I'm like, if I'm taking a selfie and I'm Latino, that selfie is Latina. You know, that's a Latino thing to do. People can't own that thing, you know? And people, because I think it's also about broadening up your horizon. I think whatever you do, if you are a part of the culture and you're doing something, like you are a Latina podcaster, you know, like you're a Filipino podcaster. And podcasting isn't something that like is people, I think there's a stereotype of people that think that minorities can't do these things, that we're like somehow like excluded from these things, and that they aren't naturally Latino things. And so a lot of the times when I worked in marketing, and I still work in marketing, obviously, like with this, but like when I had my full-time job in advertising, I looked at macro demographics a lot in terms of like who's consuming products, who's doing certain things, you know, like Latinos, when you talk about going to the movie theaters, Latinos are over-indexing. And they're bringing their families too. They're bringing everybody. You know? So they're buying more tickets. They're going to see more movies. They're going to see horror movies at like a lot bigger pace than like than white people, you know? And so you see like how Latinos love going to the movies, but then we are so underrepresented in the movie theater. You know what I'm saying?
That's
you
so
see
crazy.
Latinas as well, consumers of makeup products. Beauty products. Latinas are over-indexing in that, buying more than other people, more than other cultures, you know? And so I think that's why I've seen a lot of different products that are like Latina beauty products that are like, we're founded by Latinas. This is for Latinas, you know, in a certain way that are, you know, that are blowing up, because you have to see those opportunities. And so for me in the game aisle, you know, I see Latinos, we love playing games, we love partying, we love like being together in family. And so a game that really represented us was a cool way, I think, for like seeing those opportunities. And these opportunities are like everywhere, you know, they are everywhere. We're like on social media more than other people. We all have cell phones. When you look at Latinos, you know how much we're using cell phones. Not just here in the United States, but you go like back in Latin America, and cell phone usage is like huge. And so having stuff like this, Millennial Loteria, have cell phones in it, you know, have a card that's like El TikTok that moves, you know, that's part of what being Latino is now. You know, I want to represent us today how we are, and not this outdated representation that other people like put on us.
And it's funny that you bring up like, you know, like that Latinas are like the biggest consumers of like makeup, because I just saw a video right now that a lot of, you know, these high-end brands, especially like with makeup brands too, they're not aware of the shade difference. If I put on a certain lipstick color, it's not gonna look the same on a white girl, you know?
Yeah, she showed a video like that to me the other day, and I was like, there's no way that's the same lipstick and used on two different people of shades.
It takes sometimes big things to happen for those things to change. I think one of the reasons that industry is changing a lot is Rihanna.
Oh, absolutely.
Because she started her like Fenty line, you know, and this was a time when a lot of these makeup companies were not inclusive in terms of shades for people of color. It just wasn't around. And then she comes around and she's like, hey, here's like 50 fucking shades for every single person under the sun, you know, and here you can buy it. And all of a sudden, huge. I mean, that makeup brand just like took off. And then everybody else, all these other brands were now left playing that, oh, well, we're going to do that too. We're going to play catch up but it took her to do it and her to put every single skin color line, you know, out there in her products, because other people were just being like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, like whatever it is. But I knew that it was less. And so now I think because she did it, you see other brands starting to like, you know, try to get into that market. But you got to remember who did it first and who are the people that are changing it. I mean, I see Kylie Jenner now like put like one of her lips called like besitos. And I was like,
oh, that's a trigger word for her.
Are you for real? You know?
No, legit. Her and Kendall, they're both like just profiting.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, besitos. Like maybe you're trying to like. Somebody told her like, hey, Latinos love makeup, you know, like name one besitos or something, you know. But if it comes off as disingenuous, you know, if it comes off as like, oh, now I have a tequila brand. You know what I'm saying? It comes off of like we have to be careful because Latinos, we have huge buying power. I think a lot of our community just doesn't understand it. They don't know it yet, but we have huge market buying power, and it's time for us as a culture to create our own products, to support people, entrepreneurs that are creating products for the community, instead of these like mega big corporations that all of a sudden see an opportunity and say, we're going to cash in finally on them at this moment. You know, where representation isn't done because it's done for something good. It's done as like we're going to try to get your money, Latinos, you know. Here's hola, ¿cómo están? Guacamole, you know, and it always comes as like disingenuous too.
And you can definitely tell. I mean, you said that you worked in marketing and advertising, and you can see when a company, and especially a big corporation, is just very just disingenuous and stereotypical towards Latinos.
What's up, Mexipino family? We're going to take a very quick intermission from the podcast to tell you all about our sponsors, Tap Tap Send. Tap Tap Send is a remittance app that will allow you to send money to the Philippines for like 0.000 fees. So when you're trying to send $1, it should convert to 55 pesos or whatever the globe trade is for the time. And Tap Tap Send will ensure that they take nothing from your money. So download the Tap Tap Send app today on the App Store, whether it be your iPhone or your Android, and use code Mexipino right now so you can get $10 that you could send over to your friends and family over in the Philippines. Now, let's get back to this Millennial Loteria with our guest, Mike. Let's get it. Just the other day, we were talking about Vanessa Hudgens, for example. So she just got appointed as like the global ambassador for the Philippines. And, you know, for Filipinos, we kind of knew she was Filipino, but she never outwardly said anything,
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. So it's only until now where the Philippines is like, hey, we want to appoint you as like the global ambassador. And, you know, Vanessa Hudgens at this point, she has an opportunity to be like, hey, even though I am Filipino, I never outwardly said it, so I would have to politely decline. But she's like, yo, yeah, why not? I'm Filipino. Let's do a whole documentary in the Philippines. And I'm just like, and now you want to do it?
And it was her first time visiting the Philippines too.
Oh, wow.
It literally happened like last month.
Yeah, I mean, that I did not know that. Like, I knew she was Latina. Like, that I knew, you know, Vanessa Hudgens, but I didn't know, like, that she was Filipino. And, I mean, it's tough because what do you do at that point when you're gone your life? And sometimes I don't put too much pressure sometimes on people, because sometimes people make those decisions because of the society that we live in.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of media people, you know, there's these people who are growing up in Disney, and sometimes they're telling them like, you can't be too many things. They're managed for so many things. So maybe somewhere along the line, somebody told her like, you got to be more like white, you know, you got to be more appeal to everyone. You got to be more like ethnically ambiguous, where like everybody could relate to it, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe now she's trying to break out of it. I don't know. I'm not trying to hate on her on that way, you know? But I feel like that's a lot of times when you see people that reject a little bit their identity when I grew up. I don't think it's done as like a malicious, like I hate myself or I hate my culture. I think sometimes it's from like outward
sources,
influences that are making you like, you know, push down. I don't remember, I met people, I did an interview recently with with a broadcast person. He's on TV all the time. And he told me that he's from Honduras, and one time it was like, bring, you know, something from your culture to school. You know, like brings like a food from your culture, and he brought like arroz con leche, you know, and something like to eat. And he remembers like nobody like touched it. Everybody was going for like the hamburgers and all kind of like the white people stuff, you know. And his stuff, just nobody really wanted to eat it, and it made him be like, oh, like I shouldn't really talk or bring about my food, you know. And it's always saying, I know a lot with Asian people is what happens. They'll bring certain food to school and people, they get made fun of, you know?
Yeah, they, because it's like, and then, you're completely right. Like, it's for, I think, a lot of, like, Asian cultures, too, and I know you can speak on this, where it's like, oh, it just looks like ugly in a sense.
It looks crazy.
Or it smells
It's
stinky.
not like a
like,
sandwich that's like white, you know, it's not like a ham sandwich. You know, it's like something different. And people, like, you sort of start to, from an early age, sort of like, think of like, okay, my culture, I'm gonna hide it from like this general market, from all the other people here, you know, because it's like other, it's separate, and it's hard, you know, it's difficult for people to grow out of that in a way. But I think when you get to a point where you can embrace that and be like, I don't care what you think, this is fucking delicious, I'm gonna eat it in your face, you know, like, and I think that's a good thing about growing up, and hopefully, you know, this game, people will bring Loteria, you know, because if you bring the Loteria, I bet you people won't play because it's like in English, it's all in Spanish, you know. This is in Spanglish, maybe people will be like, oh, I want to play Loteria, I want to learn about it, and bring people part of the culture along for the ride, you know.
Well, I think, you know, a lot of the influence nowadays, like whether it be from like social media or, you know, even like Millennial Loteria, right? Like, I think it empowers people to want to be like more of who they are.
Yes.
So, you know, like for me growing up, like there was a lot of Filipinos around me. So I felt personally comfortable being like, okay, cool. Like I'm Filipino, he's Filipino, whatever. We had like, you know, we had a little bit of like Latinos like in our class. And, you know, they were also free to like do whatever they want. And I learned more about their culture like through that as well. But I can't imagine being like the only Filipino or the only Mexican or the only like Guatemalan like in a school and feeling like I can't be myself. But at the same time, I feel like when it comes to like social media and how many more people are standing out and being like, hey, well, I'm Latino, so I can do this. Hey, I'm Filipino, so I can do this. Like the empowerment is coming from like more than just your 30-person classroom at this point. You know?
And I think it's generational. I think it's a generational thing for us to be attracted to other cultures more than the previous generations. You know, there was a study that was done for dating apps. And it looked at how different people from different generations went into dating and who they were messaging and who they were, you know, who they were interacting, who they were liking, right?
Right.
And and they broke it down by age. So you're looking at people who were, you know, the boomers, the older generation from like, you know, I think 40 on. They almost exclusively message people of the same race. So they only, if you're old, you're an old, you know, old head out there, you are dating people who are from your same race. You feel like there's a connection in that way. And the interesting part was that when you started going down younger and younger in the dating apps, you know, you started going from like your 40 to 30s, 30 to 20s, you know, like 20 to 18 years old. It was a completely different thing where they were almost exclusively trying to reach out to people who were different than them. So if you were white, you were reaching out to the Latinos, you were reaching out to Asians. If you're like Asian, you're reaching out to other people who aren't Asian, you're reaching out to white people. And so it was this thing where like when the younger generations, we are attracted more to people who are different than us in different cultures. Instead of trying to seek someone out there who is just exactly like they are. And it's fine, but I think, and now that you're like getting, you know, you're getting married, we're having kids, you're seeing that this melting pot idea of America is finally coming true, where it is like a big melting pot, where a lot of people aren't just one race, one culture, it's like two. And it's those mixes, you know, of things that create cool new things for people to look at, that push culture forward and start to make people realize that race is sort of like race and culture is something that can be mixed together, and you don't have to be one or the other. You can be one whole thing.
It kind of reminds me of like a South Park episode. I know, Jackie, have you seen the South Park episode?
No.
So basically it's like we're like everyone's projected like, let's just say 3,000 years into the future. Everyone is speaking one universal language. Everyone just has like one universal like just color, and like they're like, "What's racism? Like, like what language are you like speaking?" Like everyone just speaks the same thing because at some point we're all just gonna get all our cultures are just gonna get mixed, and all of this stuff that we are talking about right now is hopefully not gonna be like an issue in the future.
Hopefully not.
And like, I mean, for me and Nico, we're each other's like first person that we've dated outside of our like culture. So like I remember taking him to my family. I was like, oh my God, like I don't know what they're gonna say. I don't know how they're gonna react because they are gonna know he's Asian. And then right away they're like, what is he? I'm all like, he's Filipino. Oh, okay. So kind of like us. I'm like, yeah, kind of. And then like it was just so funny. The first interaction he had with one of my uncles was, oh, I like Joe Coy. I was like, oh my God.
I was like, oh yeah, bro, I like Gabriel Iglesias. Like, what do you want me to say?
I was just like, oh my God. I was like, you can't say that stuff. And he's just like, I didn't know what else to say. I was just like, okay, that's great. All right, fine. But like, I mean, now, because like I've talked to my cousins, my younger cousins, who are like 18 and 19, 17, and they've told me, they're like, oh yeah, like, my dad has told me, never date, this type of race and this type of shit. Like, but if I like it, why not?
Yeah.
I'm just like, never did my parents or my family say like, oh, don't ever date an Asian. Don't ever date this. Don't ever date that. And so when I brought Nico home, they were just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, this is new and we're going to learn about his culture too.
Yeah, and I think hopefully in the future, that's something that as a generation will change. And I think it is changing. And the more you see it, and you see this younger generation too, because everybody, it's so mixed. When you look at Gen Z, it is just like, the majority of Gen Z is multicultural.
Yeah. Well, you also see like our generation and even like, like millennials and Gen Z. I think one thing that we've been doing very well is be open-minded. And with being open-minded comes more curiosity. With that curiosity, when we break it down to dating, it's like, well, I could feel like I personally know like everything there is to know about Filipinos, right? Let's just hypothetically say that. So when my curiosity sparks and I want to date like, let's say a Mexican or Guatemalan, it's like, oh, well, I kind of just want to learn more. I think that's kind of like the essence of why like we're having so many like mixed babies and mixed races, because we're just genuinely curious about how another type of person operates in this world.
And look at music too, what they like, the fact that, you see the biggest music artists now being Latinos, coming from Latino culture. It's and singing in Spanish, and that's huge in the United States, And again, you look at the U.S. and there's more Latinos here in California. I always say that than there are Latinos in Honduras, Costa Rica, El Salvador put together.
That's wild.
Just in California. You know what I'm saying? Just in California.
Crazy.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah, and if you think about it, and that's just when you go national, that's like 60 million plus Latinos living in the United States right now. Yes, we're all from different cultures, but I think that we're all like Latin Americans. I think that kind of joins us together a little bit. 60 million, that's more than like bunch of countries in South America. The second largest Spanish speaking country in the world is the United States, right after Mexico. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And we're very close. We're very close in terms of being Spanish speakers here. But the thing about people in the United States is that they're not just Spanish speakers. They're Spanish and English speakers. They're Spanglish. You're creating a new sort of like language. And I think Millennial Loteria, I think we have, we've sold 500,000 Millennial Loterias to date, which is great. But I know there's like a runway for us to like, there is a lot of Latinos out there that we haven't reached, that don't know about the game, that don't, I'm still a small like business, whether we're in Target, now, which is great.
That's a flex, bro. That's huge.
Thank you. Like we're in Target nationwide, which is we have 2 products we're launching in Walmart by the end of this year, which is going to be huge for us.
Awesome.
Yeah. Walmart's going to be big, I think, as well as reaching like a Latino like community. But at the same time, it's like there's so much more for us to accomplish, I feel. I think there's like, we can still grow. I'm like excited about the future, about where this brand can go and what it can do. I'm doing different products too for Latinos. I just I have a children's book line, a bilingual children's book line that I wrote for my daughter.
Oh, sick.
That's awesome.
And that got my publisher like loved it, and that's getting published in spring next year.
So exciting.
Hey man, let me hold your wallet. let me hold some really quick.
That is so awesome, though. Like there's just like the avenues that you can go with this are just, they're just so many.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't even talked about like, like clothing, like merchandise. Like since you own all these rights, it's like you could do like it's limitless.
Well, we actually have a licensing deal with the owners of the Loteria trademark. because they did get trademarked. Loteria was a trademark. They got trademarked a certain time ago. And so we do have a licensing deal with them for the use of the word Loteria on there. Even if it's, I own the trademark for Millennial Loteria, but there is, if you use Loteria on anything, there is like a trademark that you, so I always tell people, like, if you're going to do a Loteria, you have to look into the legal side of it, because it is like, you know, make sure you got all your ducks in order. But we're doing a license deal. They're happy with this product. And I think it's also good because to the people that are like, oh, you're like replacing the old Loteria. I'm kind of like, you know what? If you're buying us, you're also supporting them. So like you're fine. You know,
you're like, little do you know that they actually really like it too. Yeah. Like the old generation actually really likes it too.
Yeah. But we're like this so close to just finishing our licensing agreement for shirts and t-shirts and all this other stuff for like I have shirts and t-shirts for the other cards that I've created that are sort of like more specific to like the Gen Z edition that are just kind of new. They're not based on the other ones. They're just completely kind of brand new versions of it. But we now, all of our like La Selfie and El Hipster, all that stuff, we're so close. I mean, like, I think this week we like finish everything, and then we can start with the production of like t-shirts and all this stuff.
Awesome.
And yeah, I think it's gonna be big.
You know what I love? You know what I love? I love posters and I love rugs. That's what you need.
I was gonna bring you a poster. We do have posters.
Oh my God.
I was gonna bring you a poster. I'll send it to you. I know where you live now, so I'll send it to you guys. Yeah.
But I mean, literally, like I mean, like I said, I've been following you for a minute now, and it's just the progression of it, and also your TikToks that you do every day, any content that you post is just hilarious.
Thank you.
Because it's so relatable. Yeah. It's relatable, and I'm just like, man, this is just a good vibe. And when you see like you as a person who is a good vibe behind a product like this, you're just kind of like, okay, that makes me want to actually even support them even more.
And I think people always sometimes come to our social media and they're just expecting to find like a bunch of cards or something, and that's how it started. And it was kind of very risky for me to just put myself in front of the camera for sort of this. But the way I see it is there are companies out there who are spending millions and millions of dollars on marketing companies and agencies and like hundreds of people to sit in a room and tell you how they're going to make a TikTok or a social thing. And they pay them millions of dollars to appear human online. Now, these brands you're talking to, they're not human. It's a whole committee behind them. I've been in the background. I know how it operates, They pay them to pretend that their brands are human. And so for me, I just want to be human, in my social media. I post about what's going on in my life, about what I'm doing, what I like, what I hate, something that's not even related to Latino culture or millennial culture. I just something that's part of, relatable to me. And that sometimes like takes off on social media and helps out. And people are like, oh, what's this kid do? Oh, he's got a game. Let me go check it out. And I think it's also a more organic way of reaching people, connecting with them in that way. Where like, you're like, oh, I know that this is another Latino who's like part of the culture, who's doing something fun. And it's not some like mega corporation that decided to take Loteria and all of a sudden like gentrify it or something. I needed to make sure that people knew that it's me who's behind this game. And again, the game wasn't a game. It was like it was always me. It was always like me putting out things that I felt needed to be out there in society on my social media. It was an art project. It was like an expression of who I was. So no matter how big we get and how many like things we're doing, I always look at the game being like, this is me. I mean, I just have like a new midlife crisis edition for it.
That's what I need.
It has like El diaper change, El dad bod, and I was like, I'm going through changes, guys. I'm going through things. So again, it's like it's growing up with me, Yeah.
This is the Bitcoin one. I see extra Bitcoins in here.
Yeah.
El diaper change, El dad bod. Oh, that's me. Number 48, El dad bod. Minus the dad, just the bod for sure. So I do have a question though. So, for people who are interested in like, let's say doing what you do, whether it be like something similar to Millennial Loteria or just want to go until their own like ventures branding something, what's some advice that you would give them?
Look into how to start an LLC, first of all, go through all the legal process. A lot of legal stuff behind like your taxes, all these different things that I didn't know about. Like you have to pay quarterly taxes, not just like taxes at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was like,
I just found that out. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, there's all these things. So I think having a good legal team with you, somebody, even if it's just going to like, websites. There's so many websites now that can teach you like to start an LLC. There's like LegalZoom, all these different things, that can teach. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, to like remember always, like it's not just like that. You got to put money aside for taxes. You got to do all these different things, you know?
Right.
So that was kind of one of the big learning things that I had to do, you know, because I was like, oh, I can't just make this game. There's a lot of stuff behind it, you know? But create a team of people around you that are smarter than you. I think that's the thing. I know I'm creative. Like, I know that I can do creative stuff. I know that I'm a good salesman. I know I can sell something. I know that's my strength. You know, I have a big creative brain. Numbers, logistics, I'm an idiot. You know, like that thing doesn't work, you know? I'm just like dumb in that way. And I understand that. I'm not trying to say I'm the best at everything, you know? There's things that I know my brain are good at, and there's things I know I'm not good at. And so I surround myself with people who are good, like my publishing team. They are great at logistics. They are great at making sure that things get from like our warehouse to, you know, the Target stores and all these different things, and shipping. Like, they know how to do this, and that's why I like having a team. So I think it's surrounding yourself with people who you know are smarter and better than you on the things you can't do. I think that's really important to grow this business. I know sometimes people are like, oh, so you're doing it all on yourself. And I was like, I'm not really, you know, doing it all on myself. I have a team, but I'm just sort of like the face of the company that's out there, you know, dancing on TikTok, like being a monkey or whatever, like for people to laugh at, you know?
And how quickly did you like acquire a team? Because I know like off the rip, you know, you sold like 1,000 copies and you were doing everything yourself.
You know, it was hard. They actually reached out to me because they saw, you know, we were getting a lot of articles written about us. There was a lot of press right at the beginning of like Millennial Loteria, and they were one of the few companies that reached out to me. One of their founders, she's Latina, and so she kind of like knew what Loteria was, so she reached out and started to do the you know, the first intro being like, hey, we can help manufacture this, we can help with logistics, here's all this different. And they've never done a game before. They were just like, hey, their name is Blue Star Press, and they've always done like books. They do a lot of coloring books, they do a lot of book stuff, and they wanted to get into like the game category, and they were like, you know what, we're gonna put all our eggs into like this basket, you know, of this game, because we really believe in it. And it was about probably like 7 or 8 months from like sort of the start to when we signed with a publisher. And that's when we started to like, okay, now we got to manufacture quickly. We got to like update the game. And the quality went up. I mean, like quality was good of the first edition, you know, for the 1,000. But I wanted to feel like you're unboxing like an iPhone. That's what I wanted to feel like when you're getting Loteria, you know, because I wanted to elevate this tradition, because you used to get this in like plastic bags, you know, like whatever. I wanted to up it to be like, this is like really quality products for a tradition that is like that needs to have quality products, you know? Like we are Latinos and Millennials, we want fancy, shiny things. And so like when you get a game, like people love the box sometimes. They leave it just out in their coffee table as like
I was gonna say
say,
the design on the boxes itself is just like, you could just have them
it's
on
cool.
display. Like you could literally stack them. They look like almost books too, where you could just kind of stack them.
It's a little conversation piece, you know, for like, and I think it's just so cool to see La Sirena, you know, like it's a really like simple and fun way of looking at Loteria.
What would you say was like the most difficult piece of artwork amongst all your Loteria ones?
Oh my gosh,
your most difficult one to create, rather.
Well, I think sometimes a lot of the cards take a lot of back and forth of how much you change them, how much you make them new. I think for our Gen Z edition, it was really creating a game that felt different from the original Loteria. So it doesn't like have a lot of like the Millennial Loteria that you play is very like Millennial. You can remember the other cards. For the Gen Z edition, you have like El Canceled, you know, that's just like a gravestone that doesn't have anything to do with the original Loteria. And so it was just kind of like trying to create a new version of Loteria for Gen Z that was solely 100% theirs. That this was there. That there wasn't like something that took too much inspiration from the old Loteria like the Millennial one does, just because Gen Z, they want their own things, you know? You know, they want their own things. They're creating their own culture. And so I wanted it to feel like a lot like them. So I think that's why this feels, you know, our Gen Z edition feels a little bit different. We do have a mermaid, but it's a boy mermaid, you know, and he's doing the thirst trap picture. you know, and he's not taking a selfie, he's taking a mirror selfie, which is very like Gen Z,
right?
The mirror selfies rather than like the selfies like that. So I think it updated that way. So I think this one was a really hard one to create because I'm not a member of the Gen Z generation, you know. So I did have to do a lot of research, a lot of TikTok investigation, a lot of little focus groups, you know, to see what people were doing. No quarterback,
huh?
I think you should create one because like you know how a lot of Gen Z they do like the 0.5 zoom on their phones.
Oh yeah,
that'd be a good card.
The
0.5 zoom. They always like just go like this, and it's like a 0.5 zoom. I'm like, that's a good card.
It is a good. I do that too now because I learned. I was like, now I'm learning it from them.
The 0.5 is really good.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just amazing to see, you know, the progression of it. And like obviously, like you said, there's so many more things down the line this year and then next year too. Yeah. That this is just awesome. It just makes me so happy.
Thank you. I constantly have this fear that the rug's just gonna like, you know, this house of cards that I'm building is just gonna like fall down. That's just like a fear I have, you know. But I think that I've been getting so much support from people, you know, so much support from like my community and our followers, and they want to see us succeed, and that's something that I really take to heart, you know, because I feel like when you're Latino, sometimes you see somebody else succeed, it makes you feel like you can succeed as well. There's so many entrepreneurs that I've met, like just doing this, you know, I didn't know any other Latino entrepreneurs. And now I've met like CEOs of companies that are, you know, Latinos that are now my friends that I'm just like, man, you're hustling and you are like doing it. And I get inspired by them when I see them get into Target, when I see them get into Walmart, when I see them do like brand deals. I'm like, man, like it's one of those things where I'm not jealous of like people being like, oh, how'd they get that? I'm more like, damn, if they can do it, I can do it. I can get these things, you know. And I'm getting calls from like movie studios to partner with them for like, you know, sick. Movies and premiere. That's really cool stuff to do. And I think that shows people like, hey, if this nerd can do this stuff, you know, maybe I can do it, you know. And it inspires people. So hopefully I keep doing that, and like, you know, we keep growing, people keep supporting.
You know, and I see you supporting like other, you know, Latino businesses too, like Kids of Immigrants. Yeah, that's actually, I work with Ruby G. She's part of KISS. Yeah. So, but like I see her all the time, and like she's rocking it because that's her family business too. Yeah. And I'm just like, so then I see you, I'm just like, man, it is such a like small world, but we also are very much present in the world. Yeah, exactly. And that is just awesome.
Like I know Daniel from Kids of Immigrants. And
yeah.
And so I know Daniel, and I know Julissa Prado, also from Rizzo's Curls, you know, and they're big inspirations sort of for me to see like all they're doing with their businesses. And I think that's something that I met a lot of radio personalities too, you know, and that's like, it's so cool to see you guys like in the media, you know, and like being part of like what we're doing now in the world, and being putting out, you know, your Latino sort of like point of view on certain things. And I think that's important to have. I don't know. I'm very excited for the future, and hopefully all these other entrepreneurs also support us.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I do want you to talk about too is your tarot deck.
Oh yeah.
Because I am not too much of a believer in that.
Well, but this tarot deck is actually it's more of a version of Latino. So like the original tarot, you know, was super old school and very old. But a lot of the cards from Loteria were inspired by tarot, you know, El Sol, La Luna, La Muerte, all these different cards. And so I thought it'd be fun to kind of like mix them back together. Like these two long lost cousins, put them back together. So like we use the Loteria images and mix them a little bit with what the tarot card deck is. And there's a little guidebook in this tarot deck, and it's not really about predicting your future. Okay. It's more about setting the intention for the day. So there's a little bit of like being like, okay, what do I want to do today? What do I want my day to be like? What do I want? What are things that I think I should be focusing about? You know, so you pull 4 cards, you know, and there's a little guidebook in here that tells you like what those 4 cards think that you should be thinking
focusing
about.
On,
You should be focusing on your personal growth. Should I be focusing on my business? Should I be focusing on love? Should I be focusing on things? And it's things that you can like take to heart and be like, okay, I'm gonna just have this in the back of my mind today, and like make sure that I do something to take those steps. So it's less about, I don't think your future is predicted. I think the future is something that you create, that you manifest. So I think this is more like a tool to help you think like, okay, what do I want to focus on today? What is it that I want to manifest? What is it that I want to dream of? Because a lot of the times, if you don't dream it, you know, if you're not actively like thinking like, I want to do this, like just like sit down and like manifest it. I believe in that power so much. Where just like, you just got to think positive, think what you want to do, and you'll start working towards it. You know, even if it's in the back of your head, you're still every day kind of working a little bit more towards your goals.
Yeah. And you're working with that intention as you go.
Yeah. And sometimes the opportunities just come out. Like I'm telling you, sometimes I just sit back at night and I'm just like, God, it'd be really cool to do this. Man, this would be really awesome to do. These are really cool things. And then like a week later, I get a call from like a movie studio being like, hey, we'd like to partner with you on this. And I was like, that's just what I was thinking. That's just what I want, you know? Or like how much you can, you know, as much as Loteria has done something for me on social media, a lot of the times, a lot of people now like me because of the TikToks I do, not just because of Loteria. So it's helped me also like find my voice and my identity, and separate it just from like, I'm not just like a game maker. I don't make just like Loteria, but I do other things, you know?
Yeah.
And now I get to expand it into children's books, which was another dream I had. And I was like, well, now it makes sense. I have a baby. I can write stuff for her.
It makes sense.
That is like to help her be bilingual, and I can also help other people. So there's intention behind that.
That's
Sick.
awesome.
I've always wanted to ask this because one of my favorite podcasts ever was How to Build This with Guy Raz. I don't know if you are up on game on that one. So at the end of every one of those podcasts, he always asks this specific question, and it goes, how much of this, of your venture for Millennial Loteria, how much of this was skill and how much of this was luck?
Oh, man. I would say that for this game, I had to have, it was probably like 80-20 maybe, because I think I had to have a lot of knowledge for this game. There has to be a lot of a skill in understanding our culture and understanding what people wanted, you know? But I do think that 20% of luck was like putting it on social media and having it like blow up and people like asking me for it. But I think like skill level for me, this was a very hard game to create. So I will never say like, oh, this is just got lucky in a certain way, you know? But it was sort of lucky that I, you know, that I decided just to like update it and that just went viral, I guess. But like it wouldn't have gotten there if I hadn't like had the skill to create it, the skill to make it, the skill to like, had to learn so much.
Yeah.
Forget this on shelves, you know, I had to learn so much. It wasn't one of those things that was just like, all of a sudden I had a game at Target, you know? It was like, it was like huge like skill set that I needed to learn. But again, you know, there's a lot of luck that came from me coming to the United States, you know, and feeling I went to a school here that was like very white. And so I did feel, you know, a little bit like an outsider. And I think this game was something that pulled me back into the culture, pulled me back into like feeling more like of myself. So I don't think it was that much luck. I think maybe 20% luck and stuff. But like, you know, I think a lot of it was skill of like knowing, identifying a gap in the market and a gap in like what I think Latinos needed to see. And then I don't think it's lucky that Latinos like this. I think by design, I was made for Latinos to like this and want to show it off to people and say, look at my culture, so cool. You know?
Yeah.
Amen to that. Shoot, I feel empowered. I'm not even Latino.
No, but seriously, that's what it makes you feel. It makes
sick.
you feel empowered, and it makes you feel represented.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really awesome. Oh my gosh.
That's super cool.
so
Well,
excited.
everybody make sure you grab a Millennial Loteria over at your local Target. It's at all Targets?
Yeah, so if it's not sold out at the Target, I would say go online. You can check at target.com if it's in your stores. The Gen Z edition, like, I don't know where you can find it in California. If you find it, get it, because they're going off the shelves in California.
Dang.
But you can also find us on Amazon as well. Like all of our expansion packs, like our adult expansion packs, are not sold at Target. So like they have like a fuckboy and a big D energy. So it's a little bit more of like,
I need that.
Yeah,
we need that.
Your adult expansion packs. Those are available on Amazon as well. If you want to like take the regular Loteria and then like add a little, you know, you're doing like spicy night, you know?
Yes.
Add this into the mix. You can buy it at Target, and then at the end of the year we'll be at Walmart with an expanded edition, which is like, I know Latino families are huge, so we're gonna have a big edition for like you play with like up to 20 people, more cars, more Bitcoin. God. So like it's a bigger sort of edition they're gonna be launching at Walmart. But yeah, that's where we're at.
And the book coming next spring.
And the book coming next spring. Yeah, I can't reveal too much about it's actually 3 books. It's
three books.
It's
oh
three
my
books.
gosh.
It's actually 3 books. Yeah, and I'm excited to when I get the go ahead to talk about. It also deals with Latino culture, and I think people will be really I think it's going to be bigger than this. I think it's going to be a hit.
Wow. I mean, we'd love to have you back to talk about it when you're able to talk about it.
I'd love to. I'd love to come back. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. And then any socials that you wanted to plug too?
Yeah, you can follow us on Millennial Loteria at Instagram. We have about I'm hoping to get 100,000 followers this year. I'm close. I'm close. I'm like 3,000 away. Yeah. And then on TikTok, Millennial Loteria as well, we have 270,000 followers and really fun sort of atmosphere and community there. So if you want to connect with other Latinos that are like-minded, I think follow me and look at my comments, and there's tons of people there that you can connect with.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what's up. Well, my name is Nico Blitz.
I'm Jackie Ramirez.
And I'm Mike Alfaro.
Millennial Loteria. We are out, everybody. Peace.
Adios.
Bye.